Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Friday night. Tonight we're going to be talking about our brief severe weather threat in parts of Alabama this evening and into tonight. And then for the main part of the video, we'll be talking about the tropics and just breaking down the tropics and looking at some of the areas we may need to watch, but specifically an area off of the Carolina coastline that will kind of need to watch over this weekend into early next week. But first here, before I start, I will have chapters in this video, so if you do want to skip around to any parts of the video, like if you do not want to see the severe weather part of this video, you can skip straight to the tropics part of the video, and I should have more in-depth timestamps this video compared to the last video. So if y'all want to see any specific part of the video, y'all can just feel free to skip around and go to any part y'all want to see. But first here, we're going to start with the Storm Prediction Center, and this is the 01Z update for tonight on September, or the update for tonight, but it is considered the September 14th update. And it is the 13th of September. So we do have a small marginal risk here into parts of central Alabama, and we do have a 2% tornado risk with this right here, and Birmingham, Alabama is in the middle of that 2%. Then we also have a wind risk with this. Same thing here, central Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama is right in the middle of that 5% down there. I will zoom that in a little bit so y'all can see a little better right there. And we don't have a hail risk with this. That's definitely a good thing, but other than that, we don't have any other severe weather risk for tonight. And then looking at the day 2 outlook, we just have a general thunderstorm risk across much of the southeast and parts of the central United States. And then for day 3, same there, parts of the deep south and southeast up into parts of the central United States, and then into parts of the western United States there with just a general thunderstorm risk. So now looking at the 01Z HRRR for the storms tonight, and looking here in Alabama, you do have a few storms showing up over the next couple of hours that do look kind of favorable for that little tornado risk in the in central Alabama. But as you can see, we do have quite a few storms here and just clusters that just linger around and don't really move a whole lot. And then this is late tonight, and then pretty much early tomorrow, and then you just have rain and just showers and thunderstorms that continue, and then by really tomorrow morning, the coverage starts to head to the north, and you don't have as much rain into southern Alabama, but still into parts of central Alabama. But the tornado risk for tonight will only go on for a few more hours. But real quick, we'll look at our low-level jet, our 850 millibar winds, and in Alabama here. And as you can see, you do have a little bit of a low-level jet with this. You have a lower 20-knot low-level jet into parts of central Alabama. I mean, that's still enough for tornado risk, and then it increases just a little bit, and then you have about a mid 25 or mid 20 knot low level jet, and then into parts of north central Alabama, maybe a upper 20 knot to lower 30 knot low level jet there. And this would be later tonight over the next couple of hours, and then into early tomorrow on Saturday, September the 14th. And real quick, we'll look at dew points. Definitely plenty moist in these areas for that little bit of a tornado risk. And there's also, we can't forget that wind risk with this too, just a little one, but that moisture kind of gets shunted to the west of that low level jet, so you don't have as rich of a moisture field in the area, but still upper 60s dew points is plenty there for those areas. And real quick, we'll look at mixed layer Cape real quick, and you don't have a lot of instability. That's really one of the main factors limiting the severe weather threat. But into parts of central Alabama over the next couple of hours, you only have a couple hundred joules per kilogram of mixed layer CAPE in these areas. And then still going over the next few hours, 060, 070. I mean, you have this one area, the skinny area of skinny CAPE, just smaller areas, and just this little line here, and then into parts of central and southern Alabama, maybe just a couple hundred joules per kilogram of mixed layer CAPE there, but not a whole lot. And then we'll look at 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE here, and I mean, you do have a little bit of 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE in some of the areas with that, where that marginal risk is. And we'll just do a sounding real quick. We'll do one about 150 almost. You have moisture in the low levels for sure, and just not a lot of CAPE. I mean, yeah, you can have 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE here, but still you don't have a lot of CAPE and instability. So that'll keep the tornado potential low for tonight. But other than that, really not really any other severe weather risk at this time. Now switching towards the tropics and looking at the tropics part of this video. And so basically we'll mainly be talking about, as I said earlier, this area off of the North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia coast. And we really won't talk about Francine or Gordon, but just quickly looking at a overview of Francine. Francine is still a post-tropical cyclone. Francine is very weak at this point, and really won't be on the outlook for much longer, because it is just a 1009 millibar low pressure. Yeah, it's slowly moving in the, and this is Francine is kind of responsible for some of the areas that are still receiving rain, especially into Mississippi and Alabama, as well as Tennessee there. But still, Francine really isn't expected to do much of anything else. As you can see, still 4 to 6 inches of rain in some spots in Alabama, around that 2 to 4 inches, and then around that 1 to 2 inches still possible. And that is from 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time Friday through 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time Sunday, September the 15th there. Now looking back at the 7-day outlook, we have this area here, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But then we have Gordon, Tropical Storm Gordon, down here in parts of the basically in the Central Atlantic. And so Gordon is a 1006 millibar storm right now, a 40 mile per hour storm. And so Gordon, we'll quickly show Gordon later into the video when we look at some of the weather models, but Gordon at this time is still not expected to affect anybody. So really that's not anything we need to worry about right now. But I mean, it's still worth kind of looking at it and monitoring Gordon, but it is not expected to affect anyone at this time. But going back to the area off of the coast of the southeast, and then switching back to the 2-day graphical tropical weather outlook, it does have a 10% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone within the next 2 days. And then going to the 7-day outlook here, it has a 40% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone within the next 7 days. And so it's first going to start off as an area, as you can see in the text there, to the bottom right of my cursor. It is starting off as a non-tropical area of low pressure, and is expected to gain tropical characteristics as it moves basically to the north or northwest. And so that's really what we're going to be looking at in the on the weather models tonight, and really just breaking that down. But really just watch and see how it can play out, and see how this may affect areas of the southeast, or may even affect areas of the northeast. But we'll look at that in just a second. So real quick, we'll just take a look at Gordon on the 18Z GFS, and we'll look at the European real quick. And so as you can see, Gordon right here as this low pressure that I'm going around with my cursor. Gordon is expected to just continue west and eventually just weaken, and really just weekend out there and just gets along into some of the flow out into the Atlantic, and it really won't affect anybody. And as you can see, still watching Gordon here, or the remnants of Gordon that basically shows up there on the GFS. It'll eventually just go out to sea and won't affect anybody. And looking at the European as well, we'll look at the 12Z because that goes out farther in the run, and still same thing here. Looking at Gordon, just goes on out to sea and does not affect anybody there. And we'll look at the relative humidity values, excuse me. And so another reason is Gordon just gets too far north, or the reason why Gordon does not strengthen anymore is just Gordon gets too far north and gets into a lot of dry air, and really doesn't show any development. And then as that moisture kind of catches up to it, it looks like it'll kind of strengthen there on the European, but still there's so much dry air around it that I really don't see that happening at all. And then looking at our upper level shear on the European here, it just kind of gets caught into this flow eventually, and kind of right here, this is 123 hours out, still kind of far out, but eventually just gets caught and basically sheared out and just lifted up to the north there. So again, nothing really to worry about with Gordon at this time. And then now looking towards the area off of the coast of the southeast, first looking at the GFS here, and then we'll look at our average precipitation rate on the GFS. And so just keep watching over here off of the coast of the southeast, and you can see all that moisture there just hanging out there, and eventually get a low that starts to develop there. And this is 18Z Sunday, so basically midday Sunday, and that low continues to move north, and then eventually by this time it might gain tropical characteristics, but again I'll explain that in just a second. And eventually this low would go into pretty much make a landfall, you could say, in North Carolina on this particular run here on the GFS, and then eventually just go up north, and then mainly affect North Carolina, Virginia, maybe West Virginia, and parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic there. But again, this is something we'll continue to watch, and this is definitely not going to be what will happen. There's a lot that's going to change from now until early this coming week. But we'll look at our relative humidity value, so I can kind of explain this here. So you do have a little bit look at the analysis. So as you can see, there's still moisture off of the North Carolina coast, and then you just kind of have a little bit of moisture there, not a lot, and eventually that starts to develop and get around, kind of make its own environment and create a low pressure right there. And then you still have dry air getting into that circulation, and then eventually that low kind of strengthens and is able to get some moist air around it, and it'll eventually gain that tropical characteristic if this were to happen on the GFS, and eventually just go into North Carolina and Virginia there. But again, this is just something we'll have to continue to watch, and really the main question is how early will this develop off of the coast of the southeast. And so the earlier it can develop, the more time it'll have to kind of strengthen, because there's not going to be a lot of shear really affecting it. I mean, there'll be a little bit really there Monday. That's one of the main reasons it gets pushed to the north, is from that shear. You can see right here that upper level shear going into or basically going over North Carolina, and it just gets pushed up there. And then we'll switch back and we'll look at let's get a better look Let's see here if I can get a better look at this kind of on the 500 millibar, or we could go to, yeah, we'll look at the 500 millibar here. So looking at 500 millibar heights, you can see this area here, and then you kind of have this, I mean, somewhat of a trough here, and that's just all that, not all that, but those upper level winds are just riding this and getting this to push out here, and getting that low to push up to the north. And if I can go to the Western Atlantics right here, and then we can look at, this is what I was looking for a second ago. And so you do have some ridging out to the east, and that makes it have a northward track, along with that wind shear being guided really along this line here, and then up to the north. So it really doesn't have any area to go straight east, and it doesn't have any area to go north, and the only thing north and west of that is land. So eventually this makes a landfall there. Now we'll look at the European, and we'll go to the 12Z run, and we'll also look at the 18Z just real quick. And same thing here, shows all this moisture off of the coast of the southeast, and eventually gets a low pressure developed on Monday, and eventually makes a basically a landfall early on Tuesday, and then just gets it into North Carolina again. And the GFS and European, the operational GFS and European are similar, kind of similar right now, but they haven't been too similar the past few days. Some of the runs have been well farther to the north, maybe making a landfall, not a landfall, but having that area of low pressure going into Maryland or Delaware, or even kind of New Jersey, just into parts of the mid-Atlantic. So again, there's a lot to figure out in the next couple of days, and this is just something we're going to have to continue to monitor, because there's going to be a lot of changes from now until even tomorrow. There'll be a lot of changes, but really I would say Sunday will be the main day where we will be able to figure this out a little better. But still looking at the European here, we'll look at moisture again. And you can see here, you just have this area of just not slightly, but moist air off of the coast of the southeast, and you still have dry air getting into the circulation there, and eventually that low, as I just said, continues to the north, and then you have that dry air getting into it as well. So it looks like it gains tropical characteristics on the European and GFS at this time, but still, it's still not for certain that it will be a tropical cyclone. That's another reason why the National Hurricane Center has that at a lower percentage, only a 40% for the next 7 days. But if it does develop, it may be just like a weak tropical storm. The GFS has a kind of a lower end to a maybe mid-range like tropical storm, but still, as I've said probably 100 times already, it's just something else we're gonna have to figure out on the next couple of days. But now looking at the EPS ensemble, and this is the basically just a mean of all the different runs from the European model, and it's just put together all in one, and you can better see the areas here. So we'll go to the, okay, I'm already on that, but you can see the individual members and it shows areas of low pressure, so we can get a better idea of where the average is from the models, and where it might have a kind of a landfall, you could say. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a signal here, which is what we've been talking about, but this isn't a very strong signal for those low pressures, as you can see around my cursor there. But many of the members kind of stay to the a little bit farther east into North Carolina. Some have it going into maybe South Carolina, farther into central North Carolina, and then a few even farther up into Maryland or Delaware, and then still just going on up to the north, but I really won't show anywhere into the northeast tonight because it's still just too far out to tell at this time. I'll really only be focusing on the southeast. But now going from the EPS ensemble to the GEFS ensemble here, and looking at the same thing, looking at our members here. So you do have a few stronger members going into parts of eastern North Carolina, and this is quite a bit more scattered. You still do have a few lingering over here into South Carolina, but you don't have a whole lot really going on there. I mean, you have a few members that are kind of in a cluster here off of the North Carolina coast, and then you have one member here that's a 989 low pressure, but again, you have some as high as a 1008 millibar low pressure, 1005. So still, it's not really expected to be strong. But again, one of the things that will have to be watched with this low pressure would be how quickly it's able to organize and how quickly it moves to the north, because the longer it can stay out over the warmer waters in the Atlantic and basically in the Gulf Stream, the quicker it'll be able to organize and deepen that low pressure. So now I did forget two models to show real quick. We'll show them real quick. We'll go to the Canadian model, and the Canadian has not been doing as well as the other models with tropical systems. They're not really tropical systems, but the last couple with Francine, it had it basically as like a low-end tropical storm going into Louisiana, and we know that definitely did not happen. But it's just had a weaker bias for the last couple of basically week or two. But we'll look at it anyways, just to see it. But it does have that area of moisture off of the South Carolina, North Carolina coast, and then it basically has that low moving into North Carolina on Monday there, and you have all that moisture really just going into North Carolina there, and it doesn't have it really deepening anymore. And then I know it's hard to see right there, but there's a 1012 millibar low right there, and that's about as low as it gets it for that low pressure. And now finally, to finish up, we'll look at the Icon model and look at it real quick. Let's see here. So this is the 18Z. That's my fault. I haven't been mentioning the runs for the past couple of models. That's my fault. But the Canadian model we just looked at was the 12Z run from today, the morning run. And now we'll look at the Icon. This is the 18Z run from today, and this is basically the midday run. And so again, that area off of the southeast, the coast of the southeast, and the Icon really doesn't have it going. It doesn't have it really near the coast. It has this moisture farther out to the east, and really doesn't organize it much. I mean, you do have this area right here that eventually gets going Monday night into early on Tuesday, and then it eventually gets it going into parts of the mid-Atlantic, like Maryland and Delaware and Virginia there. But again, as I've said 100 times, it's still just too far out to get a good look at this time. And now going back to the southeast, before I do end the video, we'll look quickly at the NAM. I think the 0Z's come out. Yeah, we'll look at the 3 kilometer NAM first, and then we'll look at the 12 kilometer NAM. So the short range models, the NAM specifically has most storms a lot stronger than they are, but it's always good to look at model guidance and just compare. And so you do have kind of this area of moisture still showing up on the 3 kilometer NAM, but the run does not go far enough out to where we can really see that. And so now looking at the 12 kilometer NAM, the 0Z run, I have not looked at this run, so we'll look at it here. It has a 996 low pressure there Monday morning, and then has it at a 993, 992, and eventually makes a landfall as a strong tropical storm there into North Carolina. But again, this is well far out for the way far out for the NAM, so it does have a stronger bias, as I said, but it's still model guidance. But I don't personally think that this will be a 992 millibar storm when it hits, but this will definitely be the worst case scenario, as you would have that moisture in that area organized a lot quicker than a lot of the other models show. But other than that, that'll be it for looking at the models for tonight. So that'll be it for tonight's update. I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all have had a great Friday and or are having a great start to y'all's weekend. I'm gonna try my best to have another video up tomorrow night. I've been kind of on a roll here with more videos out lately, and I'm glad I'm able to put them out and upload them. And I really want to stick to a schedule like this where I can just keep making videos and kind of being more on schedule compared to these just jumped around videos that I've just put out every now and then, because I know y'all definitely want to see more uploads that are not so sporadic. And I've been also trying to improve as much as I can on these forecasts, and I think tonight was definitely a better upload than last night. Last night was not as good as I hoped, but hopefully I did a little bit better this video. Again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I'll try to have another video up tomorrow. If not, then I'll try Sunday, and I may try to make some smaller, maybe like a short or just a smaller not long form, but a smaller regular video, and just make a quick update on this area. But other than that, there's not really any other areas that we need to watch besides this one off of the coast of the southeast. And so yeah, really that, and then there's not really any severe weather threats for the next couple of days. So hopefully this will be the normal calm. I mean, I know this isn't real calm for the tropics, but hopefully it continues to remain only a few areas of interest instead of just 4 or 5 like we've been having the past couple of days and weeks. But again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's night or a great start to y'all's weekend.